Norman Lawson disappeared on the 21st of October 1986 in Kakadu National Park, Australia. He was just 16 years old. It has now been 3 decades and his family still have no idea where he is. Norman dropped out of school at the age of 15 and became a ringer on a cattle ranch. And then at the age of 16, Norman started his own timber cutting business, which became successful, so successful that he was able to employ people to work for him. It was actually one of the people he employed that he ended up going on a camping trip with when he disappeared. It was Tuesday, the 21st of October 1986, when they headed out on the camping trip. They were set to return on the following Sunday, but Norman never came home. It is not uncommon for Norman to go camping. He went every second weekend, usually with his best mate, and it was usually a fishing trip. But this one was different. It is unknown why Norman decided to go on a camping trip with these 4 people. They were all considerably older than him and people he didn't know very well. So the 16-year-old, along with the 2 couples who were estimated to be in their 40s and 60s at the time, drove 3 hours out to Old Jim Jim Road. Again, it is still unknown why they chose this specific road to go camping. The road was only accessible by a 4-wheel drive and ran along the South Alligator River, which is known to be full of saltwater crocodiles. The area was also known to flood during the wet season, which usually starts in November, remembering that Norman went missing at the end of October. What is known as the true facts around Norman's disappearance are that Norman Lawson went camping with 2 men and 2 women and disappeared, and that the people on their return from the trip never reported him missing. So Norman was due to return from his camping trip that Sunday, but he never arrived home. The family knew instantly that something was wrong. Norman was never one to be late. He was always on time or early, so Norman not arriving home when he said he would was a big red flag. On Monday, there was still no word from Norman, and by Tuesday, a week after anyone in the family had last seen Norman, their dad reported him missing. The search started on Monday, the 27th of October, and only lasted 5 days. In the official police incident report made, it stated that Norman had gone on a fishing trip and drowned, but the family want it known that this is not actually correct. There was no plans on fishing. There was no boat. They said people get it in their heads that there was a boat involved, and that is not true. They were not on water, they were on land. It was also stated by police that Norman could have potentially run away, even though this was proven as not true. After the camping trip, 2 of the 4 people did not return to Darwin. One ended up in Western Australia and the other ended up in Queensland. And not only that, not one of them made a report to say that Norman was missing. Each person was questioned by the police, and even though their stories were inconsistent, not one of the 4 people were ever charged. What was disclosed as the group's story was they had an argument with Norman, who ended up jumping out of the back of their ute, grabbing his swag cover and running off down the road, leaving all his personal possessions behind, which makes utterly no sense. Who is going to unroll their swag, take the cover off, leave the swag behind, along with his hat, shoes and rifle, in a crocodile-infested area? Norman's family do not believe that this is the true account of what happened. Rumours and stories started to circulate the Darwin community over the next few months, which the family have been able to use to piece together what they feel like is a more accurate picture of what actually happened. Murray, his younger brother, said that one of the partners of the men told him that they had a fight, a punch-up, and Norman slapped the man around a bit. Then Norman walked off with his rifle. She said the man then ran over him and then used his own rifle on Norman. Another story that their dad's brother heard was that Norman was hit over the head with his rifle, wrapped in his swag cover and chucked into the billabong for a crocodile. Police, having found no trace of Norman on Old Jim June Road, collected Norman's belongings from the group and took them back to the police station. You would think at this point the police would have realised that something was really wrong here, but they didn't. The police called his parents to come and collect his possessions. When the parents picked them up, they realised two things were missing: Norman's swag cover and his rifle. Norman's dad ended up finding Norman's rifle by chance. He had headed up to the Kakadu Rangers station to speak to the rangers about the missing rifle. It just so happened that one of the rangers that he ended up speaking to had bought a rifle months back from one of the men Norman had been on the camping trip with, which turned out to be Norman's missing rifle. The rifle was full of yellow clay, and there was only one place in the area that the yellow clay could have been from: the billabong. The family believe that his own rifle had been used as a digging tool to bury Norman. Again, you would think the police would feel like something wasn't quite adding up at this stage, but still, even with the evidence of the rifle sale, no charges were laid. In June 1990, an inquest was held into Norman's disappearance. The 4 people who were on the camping trip were all present. They were all heavily protected by police, so the family were unable to approach and speak with them. Susan, his eldest sister, recalls one of the 4 were under the influence when they were brought up to the witness stand. The coroner presumed that day that Norman was not alive. The coroner said it was possible Norman was taken by a crocodile on the day of his disappearance from his camp, but that they were unable to make a conclusive finding on the cause of death. They said while the behaviour of the people Norman was on the trip with, and I quote, "when viewed in isolation may be regarded as questionable, when the whole of the evidence is examined, there is not sufficient evidence to commit any person to trial." Susan and her family feel in their hearts of hearts that Norman's disappearance was due to foul play. The people who Norman went camping with were not known personally to the family, but Susan knew of one of them by reputation. One of the men he had gone camping with was known to have a violent tendency. It is now 38 years since Norman went missing. The family believe that the people who were responsible are not alive anymore. For this family to receive closure, someone out there would need to come forward. Someone who maybe one of the 4 might have confided in. Norman's brother and sister both describe Norman as a quiet worker but a happy-go-lucky larrikin. He had a kind soul who was always willing to jump in to help someone who was struggling. He was always the first to offer help. He was into fitness and athletics and was skilled in martial arts. He had a lot of friends and was liked by everyone. He was only 16 when he disappeared. So what do you guys think? Do you think that maybe he did just run off and then go missing? Or do you believe what the family have said, that it was foul play?